What's up, everybody? Welcome to another Mannon's Minute, where today we're going to talk about a witch's flying ointment. When you hear the words witch's flying ointment, your mind probably jumps straight to images of witches on broomsticks soaring across the moonlit sky, for instance. Or it's one of those classic pieces of folklore that has stuck around for centuries, equal parts spooky and fascinating. But beneath the fantasy and the Halloween caricatures, flying ointment has a surprisingly rich and sometimes dark history that tells us a lot about how magic, medicine, and myth got tangled together. So what exactly was this mysterious ointment? In short, it was a salve or paste made from a mix of herbs, fats, and sometimes downright dangerous ingredients. People believed that when witches rubbed it on their bodies, it gave them the power to fly, slip into trances, or travel to the Sabbath to dance with spirits and gods. To the outside world, it looked like something supernatural was going on. But peel back the folklore and you find a mix of real plants with very real chemical effects at play. Back in medieval Europe, the herbs most often linked to flying ointments were ones in the nightshade family, plants like belladonna, henbane, mandrake, and datura. These plants are packed with compounds that can cause hallucinations, numbness, and even a feeling of the soul leaving the body. At a time when scientific knowledge was limited, it wasn't a stretch for people to connect these strange experiences with the idea of flying or traveling beyond the body. A witch might have been lying still on the floor in a trance, but in her mind, she was soaring through the air. The ointment itself usually had a fat base, often animal fat, that carried these plant extracts through the skin. And here's where the broomstick part sneaks in. Folklore tells us that witches would apply the ointment not just to their arms and legs, but in more intimate places. The smooth handle of a broom made a handy applicator, and over time, this turned into the legend of witches straddling broomsticks to fly. It's one of those little historical details that morphed into the cartoonish symbol we still see today. Now, as far as this theory goes, I must say that I am skeptical about it, for a couple of reasons. One, I'm not so sure the broom handles of yesterday were nice and smooth like we have broom handles today. They may have been. I could be wrong about this. I'm just giving you my opinion here. I have a hard time believing that a witch or whatnot would want to shove a broomstick up themselves when they can just use a finger, if they really did that. What I always heard was where the broomstick comes from in the witch history is because of a old ritual where witches, female witches especially, would go out into the fields and they would jump up and down with a broomstick, like a hobby horse between their legs. They would jump up and down in the crops to show the crops how high to grow. It was like a sympathetic magic. The whole thing with shoving a broomstick up yourself, again, I don't know. I don't know if I believe that one or not. But it seems to be popular, so I included it. So, moving on. Now, flying ointment wasn't something everyone was whipping up casually in their kitchens. These herbs were and still are extremely toxic. Even small miscalculations could cause sickness or worse. Because of this, the ointment carried a reputation as dangerous, forbidden knowledge, so to speak. In the days of witch trials, accusations of using flying ointment were one more reason to paint someone as a servant of the devil. The church spun stories of witches gathering at midnight, smeared with their salves, soaring off to secret rituals. It was a way of turning folk practices into proof of diabolical behavior. But it wasn't all fear and paranoia. Some scholars suggest that the ointment may have also been a form of folk healing or shamanic practice. Trance states and altered consciousness weren't automatically seen as evil by the people who actually used them. Instead, they might have been ways of seeking visions, communicating with spirits, or unlocking personal power. What outsiders demonized as devil worship could just as easily been a misunderstood form of plant medicine and ecstatic ritual. Fast forward to today, and flying ointment still captures the imagination. Modern witches and occultists sometimes experiment with safer, reimagined visions. Imagine, what is it? Their marijuana stuff, like what do they call it? CBC or something like that. I don't really smoke marijuana or know much about it. So, but I think it's like CBC. I know there's like edibles and stuff like that, and there's things that you can rub on yourself and all kinds of things that have to do with like the chemical that's in marijuana. So heck, they probably have salves and stuff like that at some of the stores nowadays where you can buy marijuana. I'm not sure, but regardless, I imagine that these are these reimagined versions, So instead of toxic nightshades, they'll use herbs like mugwort, wormwood, or lavender, plants that encourage dreams, relaxation and meditation without the dangerous side effects. These modern takes are more about connecting with the myth, tapping into the dreamlike state, and honoring the old traditions without risking a trip to the emergency room. What's beautiful about flying ointment, beyond its eerie reputation, is how it shows the way folklore, botany, and spirituality intertwine. A jar of salve wasn't just a jar of salve, it was a ticket to another world, a symbol of hidden knowledge, and a reminder of how thin the veil between myth and medicine can be. Whether or not witches ever literally flew through the skies is beside the point. The flying ointment story speaks to a universal human desire to break free from the ordinary, to touch the extraordinary, and to find power in places others are too afraid to look. In the end, Witch's Flying Ointment stands as both cautionary tale and source of inspiration. It warns us of the dangers of certain plants, but also invites us to imagine what it means to travel beyond our limits. It's a reminder that behind every legend lies a seed of truth, sometimes hidden in the roots of a poisonous plant, sometimes whispered in the dreams of those brave enough to experiment. And whether we take it literally or symbolically, it remains one of the most enchanting threads in the fabric of witchcraft history.